Hello everyone, I hope everyone is doing well so far. Today we are going to introduce a new topic, which is about how do we find the length of the arc. Let's check some example here. So the first example I will share with you is, as you can see, this is a baseball field. So if you want to design the baseball field, we need to figure out how do we find the distance around this piece of the arc, like part of the circle, and this is going to be related to the topic today. Another example I want to share with you is this artifact is called shanzi in Chinese, which is you can see a lot of this kind of stuff in East Asia countries. And in order to design this, we also need to figure out how do we find the arc of this piece, which is also related to the topic today. So to start the lesson, we are going to have a quick review. One thing we need to review is, in order to use a formula today, we need to know how do we find the circumference of the circle. You may pause here, so try to recall the formula for the circumference, which is 2 pi r. So r here stands for the radius. So some of you might remember, hey, I think we can use the diameter too. That's correct. So diameter, we know diameter is double the radius. So that's why instead of the radius, using radius here, we can also use pi times d, which is also working. So let's check. The first thing we are going to check the formula, and later on we are going to practice more examples here. So how do we find the arc length? We actually have two methods. As you can see from the graph here, we need to focus on arc length is talking about how do we find the distance around the piece of arc here. Some student might mention, hey, does it seem as central angle? That's called arc measurement. Basically talking about how wide of this arc takes up to. But this one is talking about, for example, you want to put some material along this. Let's say I want to put some like a ribbon around this. Then how long I need to use a material. So what's the distance for that? That will be the topic today, arc length. And of course, when we use that, as you can see, this piece of arc can link to the central angle. So that's why we are going to use a piece of that. So the first formula I want to share with you is this. So arc length is actually using arc mirror. So how many degree for this arc divided by 360 is like, what's the ratio of this arc takes up the whole circle, which is 360 degree, then this ratio can times the whole circumference. Whatever the ratio of this piece of arc takes up the 360 times 2 pi r, then that will be this formula. Another, since we know the arc mirror is always equal to the central angle measurement, so instead of using arc mirror, we can just use central angle. So really doesn't matter which one you use, it will be exactly same thing. So that's one thing I want to share with you. Arc mirror or central angle exactly same. So that's the first method we can use. You can pause here, copy down these formulas here, and next we are going to practice some. After we introduce method 2, we are definitely going to practice more examples to make sure we totally master these methods, okay? So second method is actually if you like to use cross multiply this method, you will like this method more. So this one is still, as we mentioned before, when we use a formula, we figure out what is the ratio for this one. So this method is actually, for this whole thing, we figure out the ratio between central angle to 360 is same as the arc mirror over 360. So whatever the ratio arc mirror over 360, like what's the percentage or what's the part of ratio between this, same as arc length over 2 pi r, because the circumference is a whole thing of the whole circle, right? And also, of course, as we mentioned before, arc mirror is always same as central angle. So instead of using arc mirror, we can always use central angle here. So that's basically the two methods we are going to use. In the next video, we are going to practice more examples to make sure we totally understand. Again, before we continue, please copy down these formulas on your notebook or on a piece of paper, so when we practice, you can always refer to this formula. Okay, so we are going to see you soon in the next video.